Hello and welcome to Polyglot Principles. My name is Modja, and in this channel I teach you the principles of language learning, thereby enabling you to learn a language like a genius. In today's video we are going to be talking about how to boost your listening comprehension. Perhaps you've had this situation before. You're trying to learn a language, but maybe you've been learning it for a while, but the biggest issue is that when you speak with people you can't understand what they're saying. You frequently have to ask them to repeat stuff, or you could listen to someone could give you an entire reply and you have no idea what they're saying, right? Perhaps you've experienced this before, and naturally you want to know, hey, how do I improve my listening comprehension? How do I get to the point where I can understand what the natives are telling me, or what the people who speak the language are telling me? So that's the focus of today. Now, so I'm going to be giving you very many tips throughout this video. And obviously I keep some of the best tips for last, so you're going to have to look to the end to know exactly what you can do to increase and improve your listening comprehension. But before that, I do have a question for you, right? And the question is, why do you think, right? I'm usually very interested in knowing what you think. Why do you think that, what do you consider to be the cause? What is the cause of not being able to listen or not being able to understand what people are saying? Why does that happen? Okay, just in the comment section below, let me know what you think. What you believe to be the cause of not being able to understand what other people are saying, right? Not being able to listen. All right, so let's now dig into it. Let me give you my own, what I've observed, right, in my own experience when it comes to learning language. Now, there are many reasons why, right, you'd be struggling with listening comprehension. And there's about 3 reasons why that would happen. And the first simple reason is just that you don't have a correct mastery of sound. That might be the reason why, right? You're not understanding what people are saying. For example, have you perhaps had this experience before where people say a word, like the natives say a word, it's a word you've maybe read in your textbook, right? Or you've read it in your vocabulary sessions. But when they say it, you're not able to identify the word. Whenever that happens, it just means that you're not very familiar with the sounds of the language. So that might be the issue, right? It might just be that, look, you're not able to really pick out the sounds when people make them, right? In which case, well, how do you fix this problem, right? So, for example, in a language, you should be able to tell when a word starts, when a word ends. And if you've done things correctly, you should be able to imitate, to mimic a word, even if you don't understand what it means, right? So for example, maybe you don't speak German, right? But if you understand the sounds of German correctly, if I say something like, for example, I know, einschließlich, right? Einschließlich. You may not understand the meaning of the word, but if you understand the sounds of the language correctly, you should be able to say einschließlich without trouble, even if you don't understand what it means. Right? If you're not able to do this, then it means that one of your basic problems is you have a problem with sound. You don't really understand the sounds of the language properly. So how do you improve your understanding of the sounds in order to be able to listen to what people are telling you? Well, the way to do that is by imitation. This is the simplest way, right? We're just going to call it imitation, right? This is one principle that will help you. So basically, here's what you're going to do. Get a video, for example. This is when you get a video, right? Or maybe meet with a native speaker, but easier would be a video. Just get a video in the language spoken by a native speaker whose accent you like, for example, and then get whatever they're saying and slow it down. So if you're watching on a YouTube video, maybe you could make it half the speed or something like that, right? Very slow. And then try to see if you can imitate. You might have to slow it down. I'm not saying you have to, but try to imitate what the native speaker is saying, right? So let's say you're learning German and maybe the native speaker said what? Ich heiße Christian, right? Or ich heiße John, zum Beispiel, yeah, for example, right? So you want to be able to repeat that without trouble. Ich heiße Modja, right? As an example. And so watch a video and try to imitate what the person is saying. If you find it easy for you to imitate with correct pronunciation what the native speaker is saying, and you're able to imitate it when they're moving at normal speed, then that means that you've solved the sound problem, right? You're able to not only produce the sound, but you're able to identify the sound. Once you do this, you're ready to listen. If you don't understand the sounds of the language, you'll never be able to understand anything. It doesn't matter how much vocabulary you have, you'll not be able to understand what people are saying. So that's the first reason. One reason why you might not be listening to a language, we've said, is poor sound mastery. You don't really know the sounds. The second reason could be maybe you understand the sounds, you can imitate native speakers when they say stuff, but you don't know what you're imitating. Then another reason why you might be having trouble listening is just that you have a limited vocabulary, right? Remember, so you actually, this is an interesting thing. You do not need to understand every single word in a sentence in order to know what the sentence means. I'm sure you've noticed this with, let's say, English or whatever your native language is, right? So you've noticed that sometimes someone could be speaking to you and they use a word that you don't know, but you figure out the meaning of the word in context, or the other words tell you what is being said, right? So I don't know, for example, let's say you ask me, let's say somehow you figure out that fine. So for example, let's say you ask me, where do you live, right? And I tell you, okay, I live in Bunya. Okay, so the word Bunya, you don't know what Bunya means, but from the context of what I've said, you can actually deduce that Bunya must be the name of a place, right? That's because you understand all the other words. I live in blank. But let's say you didn't understand the word I, and you didn't understand the word live, and you didn't understand the word in, then this will be all a blur, right? I live in Bunya would make absolutely no sense to you. So this is a simplistic example, but this is probably what's happening when it comes to the language you're listening to. The foreign speakers are speaking and you don't know most of the words. Therefore, you're not able to guess or deduce the meaning of a word or a sentence, right? And this might be one key reason why you're not able to listen. And I know this particular one well because I experienced it with German, right? So I've been learning German for a while. I'm actually going to be putting some progress reports. And what I noticed with German was there was a time where native speakers would speak in a conversation and I had no idea what they were saying. My listening was terrible, right? And so what I decided to do was to go to Google and look for the 2,000 most frequently used words in German. And then I went to the most frequent words and began to learn the most frequent ones first. And here's what I noticed. The more of those words I learned, the more I was able to understand what people were saying. It didn't mean that I understand every word the German guys use, but usually the more of these frequently used words I learn, the more I'm able to deduce what they're saying, or from the context, figure out what is being said, because I have more words and therefore I can guess the meaning of things. So this might be actually your biggest impediment, right? In this case, you're going to have to follow the principle of frequency. Not every word is equally important. The use of a word is determined by how often it is used. So here's what I suggest. Don't learn just any vocabulary. Look for the most frequently used words. And God bless the internet, we have, literally just by Googling, you could look for the most frequently used words in your target language and start learning the words that are most frequent first. And if you do this, you're going to notice what I'm telling you. You'll be surprised that your speaking will naturally improve. Your understanding will also naturally improve, right? So this is one thing you can do. And yes, okay, another tip, another method you can use to improve your listening comprehension, and this might not be maybe because of, maybe you don't want to spend so much time learning vocabulary. That's possible. What else have I tried? What else did I use to improve, let's say, my comprehension in German? One of the things I was able to do was to watch, so there's something in the theory of language learning, there's something they call comprehensible input. So this is a fancy word. It just means that you want to work with material that you can understand, right? So let's say you're trying to learn German, right? And you could start, for example, by watching a video on philosophy, right? But that might be too complicated for you to understand. Or you could listen to a podcast about success, but maybe you don't know enough to understand those kinds of concepts. So what I noticed that whenever you do that, what will happen is you'll find yourself phasing out. Because you don't understand most of it, you just become distracted and start thinking about what are you going to eat for dinner or whatever, right? So the key is to get But when you use material that is comprehensible, material that you can understand, right? And you're going to notice that one, you pay more attention, right? Oh, and the material has to be interesting, of course. It's interesting to you, you pay more attention, and as a result, you learn more. That's another way to improve your listening. And in particular, one thing that I use is almost every day I watch a cartoon, right? Cartoons in German, right? The really good thing is that when you cartoons, what happens in cartoons? People speak slowly in cartoons. The language is very slow. The pronunciation is usually good in cartoons. The other thing you notice in cartoons is that there's a lot of movement, right? And you can follow. Usually cartoons work with stories, and your brain loves stories. So in particular, the really cool thing to improve your comprehension is try and get a cartoon, for example, where you can understand what is happening even without knowing what words are being used. That's very possible with cartoons, right? You could just look up some cartoons on YouTube. And what you're going to notice is that you don't even need to focus on understanding. Just try to follow like hearing individual words. Just try to follow the story, let's say in the cartoon. And what you're going to notice is that just from context, you're going to figure out what certain words mean, and your ability to comprehend will just improve. Right? So this is one, again, very powerful tool, and I know it works because I've applied it. There was a time when I was having difficulty understanding anything that was being said to me in German. I began to watch cartoons and my level of understanding increased. When I coupled that with learning the most frequently used words, my understanding increased even more, right? So these are two principles I've talked to you about here. One is work with comprehensible input. Start listening material that you can comprehend. It doesn't have to be cartoons, but cartoons I found were very easy to use for me and fun too, okay? So let's look at the third reason. What's the third reason why you would be struggling to listen to a language? The issue may just be a grammar issue, okay? It's one thing to know words, it's another thing to know how to use them or how they're used, right? So if you know a word and you don't really understand its usage, you're also going to suffer a bit, right? So this is improved by just frequent practice, right? Just use the language often, speak. The more you speak with people, the more you'll understand how words are used. But the biggest things I can recommend, right? So I'm not going to recommend that spend a lot of time on grammar. That is, if you're trying to learn really quickly, it's necessary, but normally it's not that necessary to spend so much time learning grammar. So the really important tips for you are the two I mentioned before, right? Provided that your understanding of sound is correct, right? Just watch comprehensible input cartoons, for example, and learn the most frequently used words. Okay, and then here's the final tip. The final tip, very important tip, that will help you to listen, right? So there's don't be a perfectionist. Here's what I'll say: do not be a perfectionist. All right. So remember, you do not need to understand every single word in order to understand what is being said. If someone starts to speak and they use a word that you don't know, there's no need to dwell on that word or become discouraged. Right? This is foolish, right? It doesn't work that way. Don't try to focus on the words, but try to focus on what is being communicated, right? Try to get the idea. Sometimes when someone speaks, right, and I notice this, someone might speak to me, let's say in Deutsch, and maybe when they spoke, I only understood 4 words. But instead of trying to focus on all the words I didn't understand, I tried to figure out or guess what they're trying to say, right? And then I make a follow-up statement which either confirms that I understood or doesn't confirm that I understood. Right, but the point is just focus on the big picture. Focus on understanding what's going on. Don't get lost in the words and the details, right? First, you start by understanding, getting a general picture of what they're trying to say. I mean, let's say you ask someone a question like, "How was your trip?" in a foreign language, right? How was your trip? And the person starts talking to you about. You could even ask something simple like, "Did you enjoy your trip?" And someone starts talking to you, but you don't really understand the words they're using. But you look at their face and they seem to be smiling and happy. So you can tell, even if you don't know all the words, you know that, okay, this guy enjoyed the trip. Right? Be grateful for that kind of for the amount that you do understand, right? And over time, you'll understand more and more. So remember, focus on the big picture. All right. So I think those are like enough tips for you. If they were useful to you, please add those in the comment section. Now remember that every single Monday at 8 a.m. Central African Time, I publish a video, and these videos are specifically designed to teach you the principles of language learning so that you can learn languages like a genius, right? So if you want to receive these videos and be notified whenever they show up, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell notification. Ding, 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 ding. That way you'll be notified whenever I publish a new video. Thank you very much for watching this video and hope to catch you in the next one. Bye.